big goings on in the state of Wisconsin, and I share this with you, and we keep returning to this topic of what's going on, particularly in Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. Not because I am Midwest-centric, although I grew up in Lansing, Michigan, but because I see these as bellwethers for what's going on all across the nation. Chris Christie, for example, trying to privatize education in New Jersey, one of 19 governors that is shifting money out of public education budgets and into voucher systems where either for-profit hustlers or religious organizations with their own agenda get our state money, and the public schools become basically ghettoized. They become dumping grounds for the kids that the private schools won't take. Those kinds of disasters. So these are bellwether issues, in my opinion. And John Nichols is with us, the Washington correspondent for The Nation magazine, thenation.com, where John writes. And John, first of all, welcome to the program.
It's great to be on with you, Tom.
Thank you, John. Great to have you back. I understand that part of Scott Walker's crazy agenda, maybe I shouldn't disparage it like that. It should be more specific. Part of Scott Walker's agenda just went before a judge, and there's been a ruling.
Yeah, it's a very big deal, Tom. Judge Mary Ann Sumi, one of the most respected jurists in the state, a veteran circuit court judge, has for 2 months been dealing with a case coming out of the passage of Governor Walker's law, which essentially strips public employees of all their essential collective bargaining rights. And she today ruled that the law was null and void. She threw it out. And her decision says that the law was passed illegally, that the legislators who rushed it to passage violated the state's open meetings law, and that they also were in conflict with the state's long tradition of transparency and honesty in government. So it's a very sweeping ruling that for now puts this law off the books.
Now, this is the war on labor law?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. This is the collective bargaining section, as well as additional components that were part of what the state Senate hastily passed in the first week of March.
Well, this raises a larger question. We just saw the spectacle again last week, as I recall. Maybe it was early this week, but my recollection is it was last week, that again, you had a Democrat standing up trying to debate an issue, and the Republicans just said, okay, we're going to vote on this. And you're there. My recollection is it was around the changes in how you get to vote law.
Yeah, it's the voter ID law.
Yeah, the voter ID law, right?
Yes.
To disenfranchise students, elderly people, and people who live in big cities without cars, and who all by and large tend to vote Democratic.
Ironically enough.
Yeah. And I mean, haven't they basically used the same strategy on virtually every piece of legislation, from this one that just got struck down, which was their first, correct me if I'm wrong, to this one that we just saw this spectacle of on C-SPAN or YouTube or whatever it was a couple of days ago? And if so, does that put all of them at risk?
Well, not so much. I mean, even if you violate protocol and legislative rules and practices, that's not as serious as violating the open meetings law. I see. When you violate the open meetings law, you essentially go into straight conflict with a long tradition in Wisconsin of requiring that the people have proper notice and that your fellow legislators know that you're holding a session. What this judge has said is that the state Senate and the Legislative Conference Committee back in early March moved so rapidly, called themselves into session so quickly, that it was not possible for either citizens or, frankly, for Democratic legislators to participate in the process.
And the Walker and Fitzgerald cabal have not repeated that mistake?
Not in the same sense. Now, you might see challenges and complaints come on other fronts, but the important thing to understand here, Tom, is that here you have a violation of the law. We have an open meetings law that clearly says how you should call a legislative session into action and how you should move. This judge has said there was a clear and absolute violation, And so she has ruled this law null and void. It is possible other actions could be called into question. But the important thing here, Tom, is that what the judge has done is highlight the extreme measures to which the Walker administration and its allies have been willing to go to push their legislative agenda forward. Yeah. That's a big deal because, as you know, Wisconsin is coming quickly toward a series of recall elections, which will essentially hold a lot of these legislators to account. And so now we have a situation where a judge has said, yeah, this isn't just liberal talk radio hosts complaining or journalists writing articles or people in the streets. When you look at the law, it's clear that these folks are not abiding by the rules, the principles, the standards of the state. That is going to be a part of the debate.
Very quickly, John Nichols. John Kasich is, if an election were held today in Ohio, the former Fox News talking head would be bounced out. What's going on with regard to recalls in Ohio?
Well, Ohio does not have recall.
I see.
Ohio has what's called a citizen veto. They're likely to have a referendum this fall where the bill that Kasich forced through will go on the ballot and the people will be able to vote it off out of effect. And so that's their way of doing it. Wisconsin does not have a voter veto or a citizen veto. So in this state, the recall is the process.
And is there and the movement in Michigan is also to recall, right?
Is to recall Governor
Rick Snyder.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on, but the important thing to understand, and you highlighted it there when you talked about the governor in Ohio's approval ratings, we have new polling in Wisconsin that shows that if Governor Walker was on the ballot this year running against former Senator Russ Feingold, he would lose by more than 10 points.
Wow. It would be interesting. I'm guessing if he was on the ballot against the generic dog or, Lassie, right, as a Democrat, he would lose. Anyhow, John Nichols, TheNation.com.
That'd probably be 20 points.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, John.